Hello, friends. In 2025, Donald Trump returned to the political arena and once again began actively using the economic tools that once brought him success, including duties. What does this mean for the U.S. economy? How will the duties affect global trade and what awaits other countries? Let's get this straight. Return of duties in 2025. In 2025, a few years after the end of his presidency, Donald Trump returned to the old tactics of imposing duties, which once became his calling card. He is reintroducing new tariffs on imported goods, especially products from China and Europe, as well as certain types of goods from other countries. Trump argues that tariffs are a necessary tool to protect American manufacturers, reduce the foreign trade deficit, and stimulate job growth in the United States. This decision was an important step in his economic policy aimed at returning production to the country and strengthening the economy. How does it work? When the U.S. imposes tariffs, goods imported from other countries become more expensive for American consumers and companies. This creates a competitive advantage for domestic producers who can offer cheaper products. However, this mechanism often leads to higher prices for goods, which can affect consumers. Tariffs on China. The trade war continues. Particular attention should be paid to tariffs on Chinese goods. China is the largest trading partner of the U.S., but tensions remain between the countries, especially on trade and intellectual property issues. With the introduction of new tariffs on Chinese products in 2025, the situation could become even more tense. Implications for the U.S. and Chinese economies. For China, this is certainly a serious blow. Many Chinese companies that export to the U.S. will be forced to find new markets or raise prices for their products, which could affect their competitiveness. This could lead to higher prices for these goods in the United States. Impact on global trade chains. In addition, tariffs create major problems for global trade chains. Many American companies that manufacture or assemble goods abroad will face higher prices for components. This could lead to higher production costs and, as a result, higher prices for final goods. For example, companies such as Apple or Tesla have already warned that increasing tariffs could negatively affect their profits and pricing. Tariffs on Europe and other countries. Transition to footage of Trump's statements regarding Europe and other countries. But Trump's tariffs in 2025 do not only affect China. The introduction of new tariffs also affects Europe. Donald Trump said that he wants to fight unfair trade practices, curb imports from Europe, and protect American manufacturers. Tariffs on goods such as cars, metals, and agricultural products were imposed amid disagreements with the European Union over subsidies, tariffs, and unbalanced trade relations. Implications for the European Union. As for Europe, tariffs could lead to higher prices for goods exported to the U.S., such as cars and agricultural products. The EU, in turn, could impose retaliatory measures, which would lead to an escalation of trade disputes. Such actions could be dangerous, since the consequences for world markets could be unpredictable, from changes in the cost of goods to possible disruptions in global supply chains. Implications for other countries and the global economy. So what does this mean for other countries? Trump's tariffs could lead to the global economy becoming more isolated, with trade barriers continuing to rise. Many countries that rely on U.S. exports will face new challenges and may be forced to seek new markets. Long-term impact on the U.S. footage of charts showing economic trends, possible price increases, and reduced trade flows. What about the U.S. economy itself? In the short term, such moves could stimulate some industries, especially those focused on the domestic market. For example, the auto industry or the steel industry could see growth. However, in the long term, the effects could be less rosy. Rising commodity prices, shortages of some products on the shelves, and increased costs for U.S. companies could leave the U.S. economy facing inflationary pressure. This could make it more difficult to recover from economic shocks, such as the pandemic and global crises. Long-term outlook. What's in store? The camera smoothly moves to the host, who sums up. Trump's tariffs in 2025 are not just another step in his trade war, but also a strong signal that the United States will continue to fight for its economic independence. However, such measures could lead to significant changes in the global economy, increase trade tensions, and even cause economic problems in America itself. How long this policy will last and what impact it will have on American consumers remains to be seen. What do you think about these tariffs and the consequences for the global economy? What are your forecasts for the future? Share your opinion in the comments. Like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all the latest economic news.